Tired of the hype about living the dream? It's time for truth. This is the place for tools, power, and real talk so you can create the life you dream and deserve. Your ultimate life. Subscribe, share, create. You have infinite power.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Your Ultimate Life, the podcast that we created to talk about how to live a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy by serving and by using your life experience and your gifts. I have a special guest today. Welcome to the show, Inna.
Thank you so much for having me.
I want to make sure I said that right. I would have guessed that your name was Inna Segal. Is that correct?
Yes, you guessed correctly.
Oh, yum. I'd like to have that right. So I don't do like introductions, reading, that sort of thing, just because it all comes out as we talk. But I do like to start with understanding what you're about. So why don't you tell us what you're about? How is it that you add good to the world?
Well, for me, my intention is to really help people to go deep within themselves and to understand who they are on levels and layers that they don't usually comprehend. So by working through both, I guess, healing in terms of their health issues, as well as emotions, relationships, prosperity, anything essentially that shows up in their life that they feel that it's like there's a numbness or there's a disconnect, but they really want to connect and they really want to understand whether it's their body, their selves, their life. We explore. It's kind of.
So you're trying to get me. If I came to you as a client, you're trying to help me both identify areas where I'm feeling numb or disconnected, or not in touch with my best opportunities or self, and you're going to help me find that.
Yeah. And, essentially, I feel like most people live in the world that we're in a very kind of desensitized way. And my idea is to help people to reconnect with who they really are, with their intuitive abilities, with their internal guidance system. And essentially, a lot of what I have done over the years has been around health and health issues. So people would come to me with traumas, health issues, challenges in their lives that they essentially don't know where it comes from, how to overcome, what to do with. And my job would be earlier on to kind of to tune in, to guide them to understand, I guess, the puzzle of their life and what really occurred and why they are where they are. And then how do we get to a completely new place where they actually want to be? Again, whether it's their health or whether it's another aspect of their lives. But I've been doing this for over 25 years. So I've spent a lot of time going through the most important themes, let's just say, in our lives. So for a lot of people, especially the ones that I work with, the themes start with health, relationships, parenting. Their theme is about work and purpose. How do I figure out my purpose and why am I here? What's the point? And then there's another really huge theme that I've explored, which has been spirituality and who am I? Why am I here? What am I doing here? So lots of different kind of aspects of life, as well as ancestry. How does ancestry impact and affect me in my life?
Cool. So I see that you've got a book there. Is that, tell me about that. Is that part of your work? And is that a collection of things, or is that tell me all about it. I want to know.
So this is a book called The Secret Language of Your Body. And it's been around for a while. I'm going to say it's been translated in about 27 languages at this point and is in countless countries around the world. It's sold over 1 million copies. could be 2 million by now, but it's hard to fully tell with the publishers. But essentially, I originally wrote this book to help people, again, to understand how our thoughts, emotions, behaviors, patterns that we have from childhood, from our life experiences, from what we've observed as we were growing up, or essentially what we created through trauma, through interactions with other people, how that can lead to either a breakdown in different body parts and also diseases, or how it can lead to us healing. So I broke this down into several sections, starting with, can we start to learn how to reconnect with our own bodies? Can we sensitize ourselves enough to start to ask questions and connect the pieces of the puzzle together? This is the section everybody ignores and just goes past. And also, in this section, I talk about how I put the exercises together in terms of healing and transforming whatever is going on. And the next section, essentially, and I really think that people should read it.
Yeah.
Because doing things without full understanding diminishes it. And so the second section is about every body part that we have. And so I talk about what can cause it to break down from those aspects that I've just mentioned: mental, emotional, energetic, behavioral. And I give a substantial process, I'm going to say, which essentially uses everything from breathing to touch to pressure points to movement to visualization to beliefs and how to change those beliefs to questions, to essentially transform whatever is blocking you. And again, I just want to say, sometimes people would contact me and say, well, I've done the process once, but I have this chronic condition. And we need to be really aware that it can take years for us to have chronic conditions. So it does not take a one-time process to make it better.
Well, sure. If you got broken, the breaking doesn't happen all at once. And so you wouldn't expect that the healing would either, right?
Exactly. And then, I also, I go through diseases, and it's similar, trying to understand what causes diseases in the body. I also go through emotions, because I felt like a lot of people generalized emotions and didn't necessarily understand that. For instance, something like having anger is the end result. And usually underneath anger, there's a lot of grief and sadness and frustration and potentially disappointment and frustration. So anger becomes the end result of a situation or many, many experiences. The same as guilt, underneath guilt connects to punishment. So often when we have some kind of sense of self-criticism, which most of us have, feelings of, well, maybe I'm not good enough, it can also lead to guilt, which then leads to self-punishment, which leads to self-hatred, and so on. And so a lot of people don't understand it. And they also don't understand that guilt, let's say, that I have in my reproductive system, which is connected often to shame, is not the same guilt that I might have in my kidneys or that I might have in my heart. And so I'm trying to educate people to become more specified instead of generalized about everything, because in healing, in my 25 years of experience, the more specific you become, the faster the process actually works.
So I have a question. I want to ask this here.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot more to say, but I'm really curious. So you've amassed 25 years of experience, and you have a lot of gifts and healing that you can offer people. You've talked a lot about the body, and it's just brought up a lot of questions. what brought you to this place? Like, you didn't fall up this mountain. So I'm wondering, what is it in your own personal journey or story that made you decide that this kind of healing was important to you?
Well, I had a lot of health conditions as I was growing up, and
Mm-hmm.
my mum, I'm going to say, was very much into only medicine
Mm-hmm.
and kind of put up medical doctors as if they were demigods, I'm going to say, so she just kind of ran to the doctor anytime we had anything. And I think part of it was that my brother had almost died when he was born.
Mm-hmm.
And when I had all the different health conditions, I had digestive issues, I had psoriasis all over my skin, and really, really bad back pain, as well as anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
She would take me to the doctors and they would prescribe all sorts of things that made things worse rather than better.
Mm-hmm.
So my body wasn't, my digestive system wasn't improving, it was getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
And my psoriasis wasn't improving, it was getting worse. So eventually I ended up meeting one of my, I guess, first long term partners. And he was very much, I was 18 at the time, he was very much open to alternatives. He was a lot older than me and kind of introduced me to the world of alternative healing. By
Mm-hmm.
that stage, I had really bad back pain, to a point, lower back pain and sciatica, where I could hardly walk.
Oh, wow.
And we went to a lot of different people. It was from chiropractors to rolfing to healers to kinesiologists to just a huge, huge number of people, as well as naturopaths and homeopaths and anything in between that you can imagine. And I would have these experiences where I would take a step forward and I would get better, but then I would kind of be catapulted right back
Mm-hmm.
into more pain and trauma. And then I had a particularly traumatic experience where I had a child that died when I was 20. And that kind of exploded everything inside my body. And I just felt like I wanted to die. I was very depressed. I felt like the victim of, life, because I just did not know that happened. And I live in Australia, so I had no idea this occurred in Australia. So I really thought there was something extremely wrong with me. And I felt like when I was going to see people, I never fully participate. Well, I never really participated in anything. And I kind of just went to these practitioners with the attitude of going to a doctor. You give me a tablet or you give me something, you do something, and I get fixed. But it just wasn't working. So I sometimes got better for a month. I'm going to say sometimes I was okay for 2 months. And I think, oh my God, I'm doing really well. It's gone. And then I just crash. But once this child died, I was just in a constant crash mode and in a lot of pain. And so my moment of change came when I saw this chiropractor. I was seeing him for over a year at this stage. And this was a 3 time a week experience, by the way. So I was seeing
Yeah,
him
that's
every few days,
right.
as people do with chiropractors. And so I came in this particular day. I was at a point where my back was actually twisted. It was inflamed. I was in agony. I came in and he came out of his office and he said, look, he kind of looked at me and he said, so, your body's stuck. And I said, yeah, I know that part. Okay, like, what are you going to do to help me? Should we go into the office? And he was a very calm man and took his time, and he just kind of took a moment to think about it. And he said, well, actually, your body wants to be stuck and there's nothing I can do for you. Go home. Now I have to say, I went to his office very depressed and kind of like, oh, what's the point of life? When I left, I was enraged. I had a lot of energy all of a sudden.
Right. I was going to say you're going to these people thinking they're going to help you, and all of a sudden he says, "Ah, can't do anything. Goodbye."
Yeah, especially at that age. And on the way home, I'm going to say, which was only a 5 minute drive at the time, um, I made a decision that I was going to heal myself because I just felt like I'd spent years, like it was over 2.5 years, almost 5 days a week going to see someone without enough progress, without anything holding. And I remember thinking the only thing that I haven't done is actually doing it myself. And on top of that, I was studying writing. So I wanted to become a journalist and a professional writer and so on. So I was doing a subject called linguistics at the time and literature and so on. So my mind thought in a way of language. And it occurred to me that my body was speaking this language and it was like Japanese to a point where I couldn't even recognize the letters, right? It was just like symbolic, but I can't understand it. And so when I went home, I thought to myself, you know what? I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to explore. And I'm going to start by essentially placing my hands on my back because that's where the pain was. And so I placed my hands on my back. I started breathing into it and I realized that the only time that I actually in my whole life that I would breathe in a deeper way was when I go to acting classes because I wanted to do acting as well. And the rest of the time it was very tense, shallow breathing. And so I was breathing with the pain, but it was scary because I kind of felt like it would expand potentially. Um, and it did, but I was staying with it and I started counting backwards from 30. And then just this thing occurred to me that I should ask if there is higher help. And because I didn't really know 100%, or any of us at that age, I don't know. I should just ask. And I said, okay, well, if there is something higher that can help me, then help me now. And I had zero expectation, I'm going to say. And just this warm yellow kind of light came into my field. I'm going to say I had my eyes closed, but I could feel it and see it. And the warmth was like waves going into my body, and my body started to unwind. And then for whatever reason, it occurred to me to ask if I could see my back. I wonder what my back would look like, was the thought. And again, no expectation, but within a moment, I felt like I could see my back. Well, I not just felt, I could see my back like I had X-ray vision. And whilst I got a little fright at the beginning of it, I was very focused. And my next thought was, why do I have this? But not as a victim, because I'd asked this question as a victim a million times, but from a place of I actually want to understand what happened in my life that at this age of 20 years old would cause me to be in this place. And at that point, it was kind of like vision meets memory meets wisdom that occurred to me. So I was shown, I'm going to say in a way, from my internal wisdom. I was born in Eastern Europe, so I came to Australia. I didn't know one word of the English, so I was shown what it was really like for me when I came, and how I was bullied and put down, and how I went from being this very I was 10 at the time, very expressive, creative child, to kind of being extremely scared, very much numbed, disconnected, scared to say a word, and how that actually led to all the psoriasis inside my body. Even though people say, well, it's genetic because lots of people in my family have it.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it was very interesting. And that's why I talk about ancestry, where it, how and what triggered it. And so that was really interesting. And as I kept acknowledging and feeling through it, and there was lots of tears, the images would change. And I became more aware of things that happened to do with my back pain. And again, when it occurred. So for me, again, my parents had a lot of challenges in their marriage while I was young and a lot of conflict. So there was definitely this sense of, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't feel safe. There was a lot of arguments and conflict, as I said, and stress. And there's a massive fear of lack and not having money. And so all of that had an impact, including the particular high school I went to and what was going on there, which was a private school. And now I was being told, that and rejected from the perspective of this school of, you don't belong here, not because you can't speak English, because I could at that point, but because you don't come from wealth and you don't come from that type of an experience, because that particular school decided to give a huge discount to people from Eastern Europe. So it was very interesting because everybody pretty much who was from Eastern Europe had some kind of an issue with their back. I realized at that, later at this time when I was exploring. And then there was this awareness of my digestive system, that my grandparents had gone through the war, had an incredible amount of loss, and that everybody in the family had digestive issues to some degree or another. And so I realized there was something that my grandmother said as well. She said that when I had this child that died, she said to me, I wish it was me. And so I realized how much guilt she must be carrying about the fact that she was, out of 8 children, she was the only one who survived. And because my digestive system became so much worse once this happened as well. So yeah, there was a lot of insights, a lot of crying, a lot of feeling. And then through exhaustion, I fell asleep. And the next day when I woke up, 70% of the pain was gone. My back wasn't twisted. And I felt different. I felt like something inside of me had changed from that perspective of me going to all these different practitioners and them doing things and I had no participation, to somehow I am now involved and I'm holding the key to this. And so for the next 3 weeks, I did a lot of kind of connecting and journaling. Again, I come from that writing background. So when I write, I understand things. Mm-hmm. So, as I was doing that, I noticed that the psoriasis, which was all over my elbows, as I'm showing, obviously you can see there's none, all over my knees, disappeared. And it is, I want people to be aware of, like, my dad still has it. He's had it since he was, I think, 12 or something. His sister is covered with it. My grandfather was covered with it. It's not necessarily something that just goes away without you looking at what it's about. And so, because it's never come back for me, the back pain disappeared, and I've never had it for 25 years since. My digestive system, I'm going to say, has taken a long, long time to work on because it's been so ancestral, and it's something that I really believe digestion is about. Your daily experiences as well. And so as you have difficulties and challenges and traumas and relational difficulties, we don't always process what actually occurred. So digestion is something we have to be aware of, as well as the food we eat, obviously. So yeah, that's something I'm always having to be aware of. And my anxiety that I had went right down, and I realized that I could see into people's bodies the same way that I could do it in myself. And so that's kind of where it all started.
So that's leaves me speechless, and just in terms of, okay, So you had essentially a collection of things that happened around you, environmental situations coming from a place not being accepted, not being able to speak, etc. Some ancestral stuff, all this stuff manifested in different ways. Digestive problems, psoriasis, pain in your body and your back, and then something. The really interesting thing you said is you felt disconnected from all these healing modalities, doctors and this and that and the other, and then you became aware of and made a choice, a conscious choice. I'm going to do something. And in that process, you created a connection to your body. And you said it's sort of the intersection of memory and wisdom. And you said a third thing, and I don't remember what it was, but that allowed you to see in a different way into the body. And I understand now why you call the book The Secret Language of the Body. And so what the story tells us, me and everybody listening, is that journey allowed you not only to create much more health in yourself. It sounds like most of the issues are gone, but it also left you with the ability to see into others, to help them also. But the fact that sight is able to correct these physical things. In other words, there's an energetic component, a vision, spirit, whatever you want to call it, that is manifest in dis-ease in the body, but that can also be healed or mitigated or brought back to normal or better than normal through that kind of connection. So is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. Yeah.
So why did you call it The Secret Language of the Body?
Because I want people to realize that it's not obvious, but it's there. It's like, it's not something that is an obvious thing, but it is a language, because the language of the body actually happens through sensations for most of us, right? We feel a sensation, we go, ooh, this feels good, or this feels bad, or maybe I have pain, maybe I should go and see somebody. So it is a language that it's speaking, but it's a language of sensation. But also when we start to go into our inner self or inner life, we start to realize that, well, actually, it is also symbolic language, that symbology didn't come from nowhere. And that people, when we look at psychology, and we also look at somebody like Jung, who was looking at the soul, and it was looking at our inner self, essentially, which is what psychology is about. What's going on inside of your mind, inside of your feeling self, inside of your inner being. And what he came up with is that we have archetypes. And these archetypes inside of us are kind of, like he says, it's like our part of our DNA, so to speak. And they're essentially aspects of ourselves that some of them develop through a family. So if, let's say, my grandmother had extreme worry, and was worrying all the time, and fear in terms of life, and I'm in that environment, that there is a high likelihood that inside my nervous system, but also inside of my own self, I'm going to copy and start to worry in that particular way and start to see life through that lens.
I want you to keep going, but I just click something for me. So if I physically walk into a place with a toxic atmosphere, like there's some chemical in the air, it's not weird to understand, okay, if I breathe this stuff, I'm going to break out in hives, or I'm going to choke, or some bad thing's going to happen. What you're telling me, and I agree with you, by the way, is that the energetics of the situation that we're in also contaminate us. And so I can go into this contaminated energetics place of worry, of anger, of fear, of mistrust, of violence, of whatever, and get contaminated in the same way as I would breathing some chemical in the air. And that would leave its residual mark on me. And there's a book, I don't remember who wrote it, you probably know, called The Body Keeps the Score. Mm-hmm. And it talks about some of this same stuff, that the residual trauma, whether it's personal trauma, ancestral trauma, or whatever, family dynamics and all that kind of stuff, that those leave a mark, a permanent or not permanent, but a significant impression unless and until we do something about it. And what you're describing is a way to see and do something about it. So when someone comes to you to says, okay, I hear you, I see, wow, your story's amazing, I believe you. Can you help me with some kind of a thing that I think is a body manifestation of some energetic problem? Where do you start with somebody that says, I've got this X, and they don't know why they have it or what's going on?
It maybe depends on how they come to see me. So a lot of people, come to a workshop where I will guide them through how they can do this, because essentially, as much as I went to different people, and I think it did help. I'm not going to lie and say that it didn't. I think it caused me to eventually, once I made a decision, to be much more receptive, and gave me some understanding. So I'm very grateful that I did go. But yeah, so it depends. If somebody comes to a course, then we go through, and again, depends on the course and on the topic that I'm exploring in that course. But essentially, I'll usually, in most courses, help people to sensitize, by reconnecting to their body, listening to it more, grounding, feeling and sensing the difference between when you're numb and disconnected and, are just kind of surviving through life, to, how do you connect to your body, which happens through touch, breath, movement, and asking questions, and, and some visualization potentially. Eventually, I actually move away from too much visualization into more of a teaching people how to actually tune in, how to sense what's really going on. So, we might have, let's say 20% of the experience of the process that where I'm asking them to visualize something. And, even in my book, I talk about something like the purple flame. And this is a visualization where I'll ask people to connect to their body, recognize what's in their body, maybe even create a shape and a color of a particular thought pattern or an emotion, and then take it out of the body and place it into the purple flame. So that'll be an aspect of it. But as we get deeper and further, then I start to stack things, and kind of there'll be processes where people speak them, because and add their own parts to what the process is about. There'll be parts where they're moving. There's parts where there's music. There's parts where there is connection to something higher or divine. There's a lot of different aspects. There's energetic parts to it where we work with energy and colors and intentions and symbols potentially. There's lots of ways. But if they come to me,
Yeah.
I'm going to say directly. And this is what at the moment I am about to give certifications to a new group of practitioners that I've just trained. And part of what I train them to do is to connect to the person and kind of scan them, so to speak, with the intention of creating a map. So it's kind of like tuning into a person's inner self and saying, okay, there is wisdom. Let's call it the soul. I'm going to ask you to show me, where is the starting point? Where do I start in this kind of puzzle of this person? Direct me to it. And for me, being more of a visual person, I will ask, and maybe I'll start with the neck, let's say, with the person. And I'll ask some questions, but I'm very familiar with what the neck is about, right? That it's about unprocessed challenges in relationships and communication that's been blocked. So because I know this already, I'll start asking questions around, well, communication. If I see that it's very specifically on the right side of the body, I'll say, well, do is there a male in your life that where you have some challenges with, or someone who you found it difficult to communicate with and maybe you push them away? And so we'll start having this conversation about it. And from that, I'll write notes. And as I'm writing notes, I'm writing down what kind of processes I might want to do with this person based on what I've discovered. And then I'll go, okay, what's the next part of the body that is connected to the neck that is the most important for me to understand and focus on? And so the body is the intelligence, and the soul will then show me or move kind of my vision to the next point, and then the next point, and the next point. And in this way, I literally create a map because I want to see the bigger picture of what's really going on with the person, and then I know what to do.
What do you suppose makes us, what's going on that creates this disconnect? Because I have the sense that a lot of people, maybe most, are not very good at the kinds of connections that you're talking about. And I'm curious what you think makes it so that we live or that we create, because I don't know, maybe we're born that way, but probably it mostly happens in environment and afterwards and parenting and all the rest. Why do we live in such a disconnected state that we need this much reconnection work to both acknowledge and understand and then deal with what's going on in our bodies?
It starts early on. It starts with what you just said, parenting very often, where in the environment that we grow up with, well, there's several things. And I've studied a lot in terms of the different stages of development. So in those very important, vital developmental stages where, parents don't know what they're doing, especially young parents,
right.
There's a potential for traumatizing, but again, there's a potential for just not meeting the child's needs in the way that the child needs to have them met. And that could be from, a parent not being there, or shouting at one point, or being distracted when the child needs some kind of sense of safety, or for you to look at them, or for you to be fully there. And none of us are perfect, obviously. So the more, or it could be the fact like that there's so many different techniques to help a child sleep. Some of them are just leave the child and let them scream for hours. And so essentially from that very, very early time period, the child is going, am I loved? Am I safe? Am I not loved? Am I not safe? And so, again, in psychology, there's a lot where they talk about either kind of imploding and numbing and self-harming and going within, or kind of more exploding and doing things, acting out. So acting in or acting out. And this happen, and whether you act in or act out, very often people have reactions, especially as we start to go into teenage years, and we start to have what people call hormonal changes for both males and females. And rather than supporting and knowing how to work with them, most, again, parents, teachers, I'm going to say, want to shout it down. So it's like, you're not allowed to feel sad or cry because that's not okay. You're not allowed to feel angry because that's not okay. You're not allowed to be frustrated, and so on and so forth. And so, because that's what we live with, we start to go inside and we start to kind of go, well, how do other people act? That's normal. What is normal?
Right.
And normal, right? Normal is usually, it doesn't matter how you feel. What matters is, are you going to be successful in this life, and how much money you're going to make, and that is supported even if you hate the job.
Right.
Right? So there's so many aspects that come in, because if it's a good job, so to speak, that makes a lot of money, then you get so much acknowledgement and support. But if internally you don't want it or you hate it, that's ignored for a lot of people. So this is why we have a lot of people going to university and then halfway through their degree going, I hate this. This is not what I wanted to do. It's what my parents wanted to do, or what my teachers said, or what I think I could have made money from.
Right.
And by that stage, you've learned to numb for so long.
I was going to say, by that stage, you're buried in all this stuff. So it sounds that this is very, very good and very, very deep. What I want to make sure we cover now is, people are going to listen to this. They're going to want to understand more about your book, and they're going to want to understand how to find out more. You talked about certifying people. You talked about programs and workshops and things that you have. Tell us where people can find you and what, where to go to find out more about this, because it's certainly something that has a high degree of need, the service and blessings and, opportunities that you offer people. So tell us about that.
So the best way is to go to my website, which is innasegal.com. Pretty easy. INNASEGIL.com. And where I really encourage people to go to is my masterclasses. So over the last couple of years, I've been recording masterclasses on different topics, starting from the most basics of kind of the secret language of your body and my book, and understanding how different parts of your body communicate with you, what they're really saying, what they're about, and actually guiding people through several processes so they can go, oh, this is what it feels like, and these are the steps and the stages of how to do this. Now, usually I'm going to say, in the past, I would charge hundreds of dollars for these types of masterclasses, where people come in, and it'd be between 2 and 4 hours, depends on which one. And, we'd go through understanding different aspects, because you have to understand before you get into a process. People who don't understand don't get results, because we must use our mind. It's where it starts, right? And when we understand, we trust, and we open up, and we allow. And so at this point, I've decided to take away excuses from people, and I'll give people an opportunity to do, I think there's like 4 or 5 for free. But this is not going to last, actually, for a long period of time, because there's a lot of value there. And but again, you'll see a section on the website that says masterclasses. Go look there. If you're at the beginner level, then just go to innasegal.com/secret as the first masterclass. And essentially it starts, all healing journey starts from you taking a step forward and giving yourself time. Without time, there's no possibility of any transformation and healing. And, once people kind of watch the masterclasses, they might go, well, I want to learn more. I want to go deeper. And this is where you may be interested in doing a particular program where, we dive deeper, or even where you go, you know what, I want to help people with this.
Sure.
Sometimes it starts with my family, or my children, and you can dive into deeper programs.
I'm really excited. I've enjoyed your description today and the journey that you've taken me on in listening about the secret language of my body and the things that, the causes, the cures, the opportunities for growth and listening. And I think you made a really good point. Again, you made it twice, one in your own journey where you decided to participate, and then just now at the end when you said, you gotta open, you gotta participate, or nothing's gonna happen. I'm grateful for all the things that you're doing to bless people in the world, and I would encourage all of you listening to go there. Inna Segal, INNASEGAL, innasegal.com, and explore this. I'm certainly going to take a look at it because I enjoy the process of sharing her message and the process of allowing everyone to take sovereign control over their life. Inna, I want to thank you today for sharing your heart and your processes and your wisdom. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you were just dying to say?
I just think that, in our journey of healing and of understanding ourselves, when we are disconnected, we're actually stuck. And I'm in a process of writing a book about stages of healing, that there are lots of stages of healing, and that healing happens step by step. And there is so much wisdom, both inside your body and for us to learn while we're on this planet. And I know also how easy it is to get into feeling depressed and feeling helpless and feeling suicidal and feeling all sorts of things, because life is hard at times. As much as we want it to be a La La Land kind of experience, it is very challenging on a daily basis for most people. And I just want people not to despair, but to go, even the pain, even the struggle, if I'm willing to meet it and if I'm willing to work with it, can have so many blessings and so much depth and wisdom and fulfillment in it. Maybe not while you're going through it, the worst of it, but if you're always looking at, okay, in this painful, difficult situation, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? How can I become a stronger, better, healthier, more wiser, understanding person? Then you'll be shown it, and the pain will then turn around into something that is really helpful and healthy, as opposed to something that's a force of destruction.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that last thing. And I really want to express gratitude for your presence and being with us today.
Thank you.
I would encourage you to listen. I would encourage you to get this book. And I would encourage you to think about this, because being disconnected from your body and simply responding to external stimulus and not paying attention to what the wisdom that it has to share with you is a way to stay stuck, as she said. And I can tell you that as you take sovereign control over your own healing, your own life, your own opportunities, that there really isn't anything except our own choices that get in the way of us creating and living the ultimate life.
Never hold back and you'll never ask why. Open your heart and this time around.
Right here, right now. Your opportunity for massive growth is right in front of you. Every episode gives you practical tips and practices that will change everything. If you want to know more, go to KellanFluckigerMedia.com. If you want more free tools, go here, YourUltimateLife.ca. Subscribe, share.
Stand with your heart in the sky.